This lecture will focus on the basics of geography and just kind of the underarching themes and the underarching vocab that will help us understand geography concepts forward. So first, let's look at some of the basics regarding just a map. Any communication or reference tool. So you're just drawing on a sand even. You're drawing little things in the dirt. You're putting things on a napkin. Anything to a big famous map. That would work too. Anytime you're making a map, it's called cartography. Okay? You're going to see tons of maps throughout this class. Next is an important concept called scale and how much of an area is being looked at. It can be expressed a lot of different ways, but to put it simple, let's look at this. And I will come back to this slide and you'll see this often throughout the class. So first, you're looking here, here's a map of Seattle, Washington, right? But it's really a map of Washington. And as we zoom in, we just get a little bit closer and closer and closer. Think about the problems that are different. So for example, would a problem around earthquakes, let's say, be a problem for all of Washington? Yes, in that case, it'd be a problem for all of them. Would the price of fish, or how does it look different? So anytime we look at scale, it's going to be different for a problem. So for instance, let's take a mountain. Do you really want to live on top of a mountain? No, so the whole mountain range probably isn't a great deal, but if you take like an individual part and just like a big hill and within a city, yeah, then that would be expensive real estate compared to the top of a mountain. Would not be expensive real estate because nobody wants to live on top of a mountain. Scale. How much of the earth is being looked at the same time? Here's some ways to express scale down here in the lower left. Next is location. Two ways to get location across. Number one is absolute location. It's just where things are. Okay, so the exact location, most often done by latitude and longitude. We can see here's latitude and longitude of the earth. Remember, latitude is the equator, and the prime meridian is a line of longitude. They meet at 45-degree angles throughout the earth, and they just provide straight lines. You can also see here two other important lines to be aware of. Here's the Tropic of Cancer at 23.5 degrees north, and south of the Tropic of Capricorn. So north and south measured by lines of latitude, and prime meridian measures east and west. Approximately it's the degrees. I was thinking time zones in my head for a second. Sorry. So now if I go back, there's latitude and longitude. That gives you absolute location, or you can do relative location, also known as situation. Both important. So I am next to this. I am next to that. I am north of Mall of America. Well, then you have an idea. But if I just say I'm north of this random dude's house, that's not going to help you. So relative location almost always shown by something specific. Hey, we're right next to the high school. Perfect. You would know where a person is. So relative then is also you have two things going on. It's the person's situation. Where are they compared to something else? All right. So absolute location, relative location are the two ways to tell a person's location. Next, let's go to place. Place is the unique human and physical features of a location. So I think of place this way, and so a site is the physical characteristics of a place would be like the wind, the air, the water. What do you have access to at a specific location? It's site features. So if you're at a lake, obviously, there you have the water, and there you could figure out the wind and all the temperature and that stuff. Now, realize those can be man-made as well. So for example, in Boston, which is the top up there, anything in beige has been added to the land. The bottom is Shanghai. They're changing the site. They're adding to the harbor. Almost all of New York City today, when New York City was New Amsterdam back in the 1600s, wasn't there. We've added to it over time. The easiest way for place to me, and to describe it, is this way. A location on a map is just a location. There's no sense of anything to it for you. A place, though, is when you get feeling and emotion tied to a place. So, for example, when I'm going to my grandma's house, there's a sense that she lives on a quarter-mile long driveway. When I'm driving up that driveway, or going up that driveway in general, I get like this sense of peace and calm. And in reality, it's just a spot on a map. But there's a sense of place. It brings meaning and emotion to my life. And so, there's things like that. And then there's also places that have placelessness, such as this place. And this is a perfect example of placelessness. You should be able to look at that card and figure out what's going on there. And so when we look at place is really what we're going to talk about a lot, is what comes with a location. Place goes beyond location. Also, a part of place is toponym, is the names of things. So whether that is the battle over the lake just south of Minneapolis, there's me using situation. And what is the name of it? Or at the bottom down there with Denali, and what used to be known as Mount McKinley, and its official name is now Denali. By the way, this is the longest name given for anything in the United States. It means fishing. It's really long. Okay, here's just one more graphic on sense of place, and you can see kind of the things that go in there, whether that's food, and there's just food and culture and everything that comes with trying to have this meaning and emotion tied to a place. All right, next one. Distance, how far things are apart from each other, the space between them. Miles, kilometers, things like that, but that's not the important stuff. The three definitions down there are the main things that we are going to discuss here. Okay, first one is time-space compression. Also could be given to you as space-time compression or time-space convergence or space-time convergence. All mean the same thing. I'll try to use time-space compression whenever I can. This is getting to the fact that it's easier to travel as we go. So if I show you this one, here we go. So this is ready to travel from New York City. This is showing you time-space compression. So you look at New York, and this shows you how far you could get in New York in, let's say, 6 weeks. It would take you 6 weeks to get to Chicago in 1800. It would take you 4 weeks to get down here to Louisiana. It would take you 2 weeks, etc. To show it to you even better is this. So you have, it took Columbus 37 days to get from Europe to the Caribbean. Well, by 1962, it was 3 orbits to get around the Earth in 5 hours by John Glenn. And obviously that time is only increasing. The speed at which we can communicate and travel throughout the world is only increasing with time as we move forward. The second concept with distance is friction and distance. The fact if you are going further, it's going to cost more. And so basically time-space compression is the fact that as distance is going on, yeah, the time is going to be less, but the friction distance says the further you go, the more it's going to cost you. So time-space compression says basically over time, we've shrunk the world down, but then friction distance looks at, okay, how much time does it take to get there? How about the cost to get there, to keep connections? So for instance, when you guys go off to college next year, or whenever you're going off to wherever you're going, you're going to lose touch with some of the people here. And part of that is because you are further apart from them than before. So I think of back to childhood friends that I don't keep in touch with anymore. Well, part of the reason they were my friends is they lived 2 doors down from me. I have no idea where they are now. Okay. And part of that, of what shows friction distance, is distance decay. As contact diminishes, as distance increases. Here's a real easy chart for that. So from there, you definitely should be able to understand the 3 just definitions of what goes with distance as well. All right, so here we go. Let's go to the next part. Is distribution, the arrangement of things as featured in a space. Does a pattern exist? That's the key question to any of this. So first, let's look at this. This is a map of Australia. Okay, so when we look at this map of Australia, this is average rainfall. Australia is a huge landmass with a good amount of people. However, because of the rain being so clustered around the coasts, this is where everybody lives in Australia. The population density is almost all in the white here. Population density is almost all in the white. So their population, even though it's a big island, is very much clustered. Or to give you another example, let's look at this. Okay, baseball teams in 1952, very much clustered in the northeast part of the country. But then 2010, there's actually more teams, but the teams are more dispersed upon the continent. Now, clustered versus dispersed leaves a big gray space, or gray area. There isn't, hey, this is clustered, this is dispersed, gray area. No, it's a term used to look at distribution, clustered being tight together, dispersed being further apart. Next. Human environmental relationships. This is the study of ecology and how humans interacting with the environment changes things. So first, let's look at this map, the climate map of the world. Climate map of the world starts to show environmental determinism. Environmental determinism is the fact that the environment dictates how far you can advance as a society. This is not well accepted today as geographers. Would say basically that if you're not in a good climate, you're not going to have any sort of success. Well, that goes against the belief of possibilism. Possibilism, where the physical environment plays a role, but human culture also drives development. So, for example, in the Netherlands, they have something called polders. Polders are these. Here you can see all the polders they've created. They've essentially created land by using a dike system to prevent the North Sea from flooding, and they can use it for agriculture. Okay, the Everglades did this. The Corps of Engineers built a levee around Lake Okoboji in the 30s, and it drained almost a third of the Everglades, and it diverted rivers and whatnot, and opened a lot of land for sugarcane. Now, in some ways, this can be helpful to the environment. Otherwise, it's not going to be helpful to the environment. It really depends on what it is. I mean, even creation of, let's say, islands is an example of possibilism in Dubai, or just even the fact that we can live in Venice would be another example of possibilism. So, as a whole, you should be able to know human-environmental relationships. How does the human development depend on the environment? That is really you're looking at environmental determinism versus possibilism. One of the other things we're going to look at a ton is just how things move over time. So look at hearth is where something starts, but the key thing here is diffusion. Hearth, where something starts and how things diffuse out. Two main types of diffusion. The first one is relocation diffusion, where something spreads when people move. Like a Chinatown, you're going to bring those characteristics with you as you go, and whenever somebody moves, they bring new characteristics with them. Second bigger type there is expansion diffusion, which is spread through an additive process. You're adding people. Or relocation diffusion, it's an idea goes with. In this case, the idea is the one that's moving, not necessarily the people. There are 4 ways that you can do this, where it's hierarchical, where either you have a leader, a person in power, wealth, etc. They start the trend. It's like basically pop culture is this, or like the fact an inch is an inch, as a king in Europe decided an inch was the length of his thumb. That'd be hierarchical. Reverse hierarchical then would be if it starts from the bottom up. So this would, or I'm sorry, let me do my hierarchical diffusion one there. Michael Jordan, basketball. The number 23 is the most popular number because of him, 100%. Reverse hierarchical diffusion, it starts at the bottom and works its way up. This would be like grassroots efforts in politics would be an example. Next is contagious diffusion, spreads continuously throughout contact. That would be like a virus, a computer virus, or a just like the flu itself. And here would be an example of, here's contagious diffusion, spreading all up. Hierarchical needs to go through these nodes. You have to have a link. So in contagious diffusion, it just spreads to everybody. Hierarchical diffusion, you have to come in contact with somebody who has it. So transportation and communication are very important there, and you have to be connected. If you're not connected, you're not going to get it. The last one is stimulus diffusion. This is when you have an underlying trait is accepted, even though the main thing is rejected. So let's take McDonald's. When they first went to India, they tried to introduce Big Macs. Well, that's not going to work because India does not eat beef, and they are with part of the Hindu tradition. So McDonald's got rid of the Big Mac and created the veggie burger essentially for India. McDonald's was accepted, but the specific trait of the Big Mac was rejected. So trait is rejected, Big Mac, but accepted is the underlying principles that McDonald's held around fast food. Which then leads us to our last topic today, which is the basics of geography. Globalization. The process has intensified as interaction around the world has increased, whether that's transportation and communication networks. You can see airplanes here. Has allowed for integration of culture, whether that's Bollywood, Taco Bell. This is Macau, where the most casino money gets taken in the world. In China, who owns all the casinos there? Vegas. How about the politics of the world being more and more integrated with the United Nations? How about the fact that you can communicate with people around the world with Twitter? How about the fact that you can get basically anything from around the world with Amazon? And this is only increasing. Even Tencent, which is a huge multinational investment company. You have companies that can exist all over the world. And in reality, you aren't just competing with people next door for jobs anymore. You're competing with people literally all over the world. And the culture that spreads with that then is enormous. Think about Taco Bell. Basically, you've taken a taco, which is a Central American idea. We've Americanized it and sold that back to the world. That is globalization in a nutshell. Taking our globalization, the process of interaction around the world has only increased.